I'm Dusty Martin with Platinum Living Realty. Today we're going to talk about what you need to know about moving to Arizona and our water issues. If you're thinking of buying here and you're not really sure where to start or what's going on because you see all this scary stuff on the news, buckle up, let's go, I got your back. Let's just get to the main thing. A lot of times on the news, and especially from other states, if you're not familiar with Arizona, you see things like Arizona's running out of water, Arizona in a drought. Yeah, we are a drought state. It's the desert, and we understand that, and we have planned for that for decades, longer than I've been alive. And so when you come to Arizona, there's a few things you should know. One of the things is overall, Arizona is very, very good at saving and banking their water, and we even bank water for other states. A lot of times we pump it underground into aquifers, and that way when the other states need to take more of their portion, they take it off the top of the Colorado, and then we basically sell their water back to them. That's a very stripped down, modified way of saying it. But what you need to know is that you can't put in a housing development in Arizona unless you can guarantee 100 years of water for that community. So you have to designate the source, you have to run the tests to show that there is enough water to support that new neighborhood or community or development, whatever it is that you're putting in. And that is taken very seriously. And it has been that way for decades. This is not a new regulation. This is not something that has happened just in the last couple years. This is something that Arizona has made a stipulation for a very long time. The second thing you need to know about water in Arizona is, especially if you're thinking of buying in rural areas or areas with lots of horse property or agricultural land. One of the things you need to be on the lookout for when you're purchasing a home is whether or not the home is on city water or a private water company of some kind, or if it is on a private well, shared well, or hauled water. The one you want to be on the lookout for and really do your due diligence for before you purchase a home is that hauled water. Hauled water means there's no well on the premises and there's no city water or a private water company that functions as city water. That means there's a big tank on the property that needs to be refilled from time to time through a private water hauling company. One of the things you need to be on the lookout for, and I don't know if this is uneducated agents or agents who are hoping to avoid the stigma of hauled water, but sometimes in the MLS, the listing will show that it's a private water company. And technically, yes, hauled water has to be gotten from a private water company. However, it's not the same type of private water company that you see in like Anthem, where it functions almost like a city service. There's a meter out front at your house. It's all plumbed like it would be in a city. It's not like you're going to turn on your faucet one day and be out of water. Where with hauled water, if you don't monitor it closely, that could definitely happen. So one of the things to keep in mind is, especially when you're looking at really beautiful areas like Rio Verde. Now, Rio Verde, a lot of people misunderstand what's going on out there. The problem with water in Rio Verde is that there are some areas that have never had water and never had wells that are high producing enough. Some areas of Rio Verde do produce wells with high enough water tables and water pressure to be able to, run your property. However, in some areas, that's not the case. And there is a lot of new builds out there that are on hauled water. And recently the city of Scottsdale said, we're not going to sell water to these private water companies anymore. And if you do, it's going to be at a much higher rate than what you were paying before. And so it's not that there's not water in Rio Verde, it's that it's now coming at a premium for those houses that don't have private or shared wells that produce enough water to sustain them. And so the key for that is to be very diligent on making sure if somebody has marked private water company on that, you need to make sure that, is this EPCOR? Is this part of the actual Rio Verde development that is plumbed like a city? Or is this on hauled water? So you have to be careful, because homes in Rio Verde with private or shared wells that do produce enough water actually are going to cost you more money than a home that is on hauled water. So you have to really pay attention to that and make sure that you're doing your due diligence. Now, in other parts of the valley, hauled water isn't a problem, but at the same time, it always has the potential to maybe put you in a tight spot if the water company shifts its prices, if their source gets cut off, like with what happened with Rio Verde. Maybe I have theories about maybe the city of Scottsdale is trying to force annexation of Rio Verde. I'm not sure, but that is always an option in other parts of the state. Now, in other parts of the state, say in northern Arizona, their water table has been suffering for about 20 years. And so in the Pine Strawberry area, there's several wells, dozens of wells, but maybe only 19 of them basically produce water. Even if a home is on a well or shared well, you need to do your due diligence, have the well tested, have the rate and the flow tested, figure out what depth the water table is at, and make sure that you are figuring out how many feet, I think it's cubic feet per minute, that the water is actually being produced at. And that will give you an idea on, is your well going to stay functional, or are you going to have problems long term with it being either too shallow, too deep, and all the things that come in between. The other thing you need to absolutely do if you're thinking of buying a home on a well is to make sure you have the water tested. Arizona was founded as a mining state, and there are tons of little mines all over northern Arizona and into our foothills. And because of those mines and the old runoff, some wells can be contaminated. And so you want to make sure that you absolutely know whether or not your well is and what you can do about it, if anything. In most cases, you can put a whole home filtration system on it to make sure that all of the water that you get is easily able to be filtered out. In other scenarios, it might be so bad that there's nothing you can do. So definitely do your due diligence. If you have any other questions about buying a home in Arizona and things you should look for when considering water issues in the area you're thinking of buying in, go ahead and give me a call at 480-717-9405 or visit my website at dustymartinrealtor.com.